10 dimensions. The notion of dimensions has historically been approached from geometry and mathematical physics. Traditionally, the first, second, and third dimensions are conceived as spatial extensions, and the fourth as time, an irrefutable principle. Everything in the universe is energy. First, flow. The first dimension involves recognizing that the basis of all reality is movement and flow. Being is not static but dynamic, a continuum of energy. Energy flows in all directions in the first dimension. Second, content. The second dimension corresponds to the recognition that energy not only flows, but also carries information. Each photon, particle, and wave contains a set of data about its origin, frequency, phase, and polarization. Energy, therefore, is also an information vehicle. In quantum mechanics, the photon carries information about the energy transition of an atom. The cosmic background radiation is, on a large scale, an informative record of the early state of the universe. The second dimension emphasizes that the universe is not a mere blind flow of energy, but an organized cosmos that bears traces of itself. Reality is, at its base, informed energy. Third, density. The third dimension from this energetic perspective is the level at which energy condenses and acquires density. Matter emerges as an organized form of vibrating energy that reaches a stable state of structuring. The process of subatomic particle formation in the early universe represents the passage from pure energy to density. The equation EmC2 illustrates how energy can be transformed into mass. Crystallization is an example where energetic vibrations condense into solid, orderly, and dense structures. A classic example is the formation of salt crystals, NaCl. The fourth dimension corresponds to the environment and context in which dense structures exist and interact. The behavior of matter and energy is profoundly conditioned by the conditions of the environment that surrounds them. In astrophysics, galaxy formation depends on the gravitational context and the distribution of dark matter. Without this environment, structures would not be able to organize. The pH of a solution represents a chemical context that conditions the stability and reactivity of molecules. A protein, for example, changes its conformation according to the chemical environment. The fourth dimension reminds us that nothing exists in isolation. Reality is relational, and the context not only conditions, but also co-creates the form and meaning of each entity. Fifth, life. The fifth dimension marks the emergence of organic life. At this level, energy, information, density, and context converge to give rise to self-organizing systems capable of reproduction, metabolism, and adaptation. Non-equilibrium thermodynamics explains how open systems, such as cells, maintain internal order by exchanging energy and matter with the environment. Prebiotic reactions, such as those simulated in the Miller-Urey experiment, demonstrate how simple molecules can be organized into complex organic compounds, a fundamental step towards life. The emergence of single-celled organisms represents the clearest materialization of the fifth dimension. From here, evolution would give rise to all known biological diversity. Narrator, VO. Sixth, systems interaction and emergence. Narrator, VO. The sixth dimension is characterized by the interaction between living systems and by the emergence of collective properties that are not found in isolated individuals. Narrator, VO. This is where ecology, symbiosis, and cooperation appear. In physics of complex systems, phenomena such as the synchronization of coupled oscillators illustrate how individual entities generate emergent collective behavior. Metabolic networks are examples of interdependent chemical systems that sustain life through feedback loops and molecular collaboration. Narrator, VO. 7th, collective memory and information. Narrator, VO. The 7th dimension corresponds to the storage, transmission, and accumulation of information in collective systems. Memory is not limited to the individual level but becomes a collective, biological, or social heritage. Liquid crystals and shape memory materials show how certain physical systems remember previous states and reproduce them when the right conditions are given. Narrator, VO. The 7th dimension shows that energy is not only organized into life and systems but also preserves traces. Memory allows the experience of the past to shape the future. Narrator, VO. Octave emergent consciousness. Narrator, VO. The 8th dimension corresponds to the emergence of consciousness as an emergent phenomenon. It is not only about processing information, but about generating a subjective experience and a sense of identity. Narrator, VO. Some quantum neuroscience models suggest that consciousness could be related to coherent quantum states in microtubules, although this hypothesis remains controversial. Neurotransmission, mediated by molecules such as dopamine or serotonin, is a fundamental chemical example in the emergence of conscious states. Narrator, VO. The 8th dimension opens the central question: how does the subjective experience of matter arise? Here philosophy of mind and science meet, exploring the boundaries between the physical and the phenomenological. Novena, awareness. The 9th dimension refers to the ability of a living being not only to be conscious, but to recognize itself as an individual differentiated from the environment. Self-awareness is a qualitative leap from basic consciousness. Experiments with mirrors show that some animals, such as dolphins, elephants, and certain primates, are able to recognize themselves, indicating an advanced level of self-perception. The chemical basis of self-awareness lies in the complex neurochemistry of the human and animal brain, where neurotransmitters and hormones regulate states of internal perception. Self-awareness involves the construction of a self, something studied in developmental psychology when young children reach this capacity. The 10th dimension corresponds to complex human consciousness, characterized by symbolic language, abstraction, long-term planning, ethics, and the ability to transform the environment in an intentional way. The human brain, with approximately 86 billion neurons, is the most complex physical system known, capable of generating culture, science, and technology. The biochemical regulation of human cognition includes fine molecular interactions that underpin memory, creativity, and critical thinking. It is important to emphasize that the universe is multidimensional, and in turn recognize the fact that each molecular, organic, and inorganic form is multidimensional. Ernesto Ojeda Ochoa. It is important to emphasize that the universe is multidimensional, and in turn recognize the fact that